think for a moment about a situation where you can't communicate your wishes about your own medical care.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to really imagine, isn't it?
It really is. And you have to ask, who would speak for you? How could you be sure your deepest values, would guide those critical decisions?
That's exactly the important area we're going to explore in this deep dive.
Mhm.
We're focusing on the idea of a medical will and why it carries particular significance and has specific practical considerations for Muslims living here in the United States.
Exactly. Our goal here is to give you a really clear understanding of what a medical will actually is, why it's so vital, especially when we think about it from an Islamic perspective, and maybe most importantly, how you can actually take steps to create one. We've been looking at some really informative sources, explanations of medical wills generally, and some specific discussions about, their necessity and how they fit within an Islamic viewpoint.
Yes, so we're drawing directly from that to make this as clear and hopefully as useful as possible for you.
Okay, so let's dive in, lay the groundwork for us. What is a medical will in the U.S. context?
Okay, so let's break it down. Within the U.S. legal system, a medical will is basically a legal document.
Legal document, got it.
You might also hear it called advanced directives, or maybe a living will, lots of terms floating around.
Right.
But essentially what it lets you do is specify your preferences for medical treatment.
Your preferences.
For a time when maybe you become unable to make those decisions yourself because of illness or an accident, something like that.
Okay, so if you can't communicate, this document becomes your voice.
Exactly. It ensures your wishes about medical treatment are actually respected. That's its core function.
Can you give us some really concrete examples? What kinds of wishes are we talking about here?
Sure. These wishes can cover some pretty critical medical interventions, like would you want CPR if your heart stopped?
Okay.
Or would you consent to artificial nutrition, like a feeding tube if you couldn't eat on your own?
Right, that's a big one.
It is. Or what about mechanical ventilation, a machine to help you breathe? These are the specific kinds of decisions you can outline.
That makes it very, very real. Now, this is obviously important for everyone, but let's talk specifics. Why does it hold such particular importance for Muslims living in the U.S.?
That's a really crucial point to understand. For Muslims, having a medical will isn't just about, general healthcare choices. It connects directly with deeply held Islamic values and principles. It's actually a way to ensure that medical decisions align with their faith.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. How does it help navigate situations that might, potentially conflict with Islamic beliefs?
Right. Well, one key area involves decisions around, say, aggressive life support in situations where there's really no realistic hope of recovery.
Okay.
Within Islamic thought, there can be a perspective on accepting the natural course of life and death, aligning with Allah's decree, or qadar.
Qadar.
Divine decree. Exactly. So a medical will provides a way for a Muslim to clearly state their wishes regarding those kinds of interventions, potentially refusing treatments seen as only prolonging the dying process.
So it's about aligning those really critical medical choices with an Islamic understanding of life's journey, accepting what's been decreed rather than maybe pursuing interventions that just prolong things unnaturally.
Precisely. And there's another important aspect. A medical will lets a Muslim proactively designate someone they trust.
Ah, the medical agent we hear about.
Yes, exactly. A trusted individual, maybe a family member, a close friend, who understands and, crucially, will respect their Islamic principles when making medical decisions for them.
So it guarantees that these vital choices are guided by their faith through someone who gets it.
That's the goal. It ensures those decisions are made through an Islamic lens.
That clarifies it beautifully. So it's not just what you want medically, but ensuring it's handled in line with your faith by someone you trust.
Correct.
To really bring this home, maybe we could look at some real-life examples, make it less abstract.
Absolutely. Stories can really illustrate the impact. Let's consider Ahmed's experience. He was 65, a Muslim man who sadly suffered a major stroke.
Okay.
And because he hadn't put a medical will in place, his family faced these incredibly difficult decisions about his treatment, his ongoing care.
Wow.
All while dealing with their own distress, They were left with this heavy burden of uncertainty about what Ahmed himself would have actually wanted.
Gosh, that sounds incredibly challenging. Just heartbreaking for his loved ones, adding that layer of doubt.
It really was a very tough situation. Now let's contrast that with Sarah's story, a younger woman diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Okay.
But thankfully, Sarah had taken that important step. She created a medical will.
Good for her.
And in it, she clearly outlined her wishes about treatment as her illness progressed, what she wanted, what she didn't want.
And the impact.
Well, it provided immense clarity for her doctors, her medical team. And crucially, it eased the burden on her family. They had the peace of mind knowing they were honoring her stated preferences.
What a huge difference that must have made for everyone involved. That sense of certainty during such a difficult time.
A profound difference,
Right.
yes. We have one more example, right? Khaled.
Yes, tell us about Colette.
So Khaled initially felt, like maybe a medical will wasn't something he really needed to worry about just yet.
A common feeling, probably.
Very common.
Yeah.
But then he witnessed a close friend's family going through that difficult process we talked about,
Ah.
navigating really complex medical decisions for their father, who was incapacitated and hadn't documented his wishes. Seeing that firsthand really shifted Khaled's perspective.
It made it real for him.
Exactly. He suddenly recognized just how critical it was. So he promptly took steps to complete his own medical will and appoint a medical agent.
These stories, they really, they drive home the importance, don't they? The tangible impact of having this document ready.
They really do.
So for someone listening now who understands why this is so vital, let's get practical. What are the steps involved in actually creating one here in the U.S.?
Right, that's the essential next question. How do you actually do it? Preparing a medical will in the U.S. involves several key steps.
Okay.
First, it's helpful to understand the different kinds of documents. You've got what are generally called advanced directives.
Advanced directives.
These let you be very specific about the types of medical treatments you would or would not want, like CPR, ventilators, feeding tubes we mentioned.
So the what?
Exactly, the what. Then there's something called a healthcare proxy, or sometimes a durable power of attorney for healthcare. These are more focused on the who.
The who.
Yes, appointing a specific, trusted person, your agent, to make medical decisions for you if you become unable to.
Ah, okay. So one is more about the specific treatments. The other is about who decides if you can't.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And, often people choose to have both elements to provide really comprehensive guidance. Covers all the bases, so to speak.
Makes sense. What's next after understanding the types?
The next crucial step is to really reflect. Think deeply about your own medical wishes. Ask yourself those tough questions. Do I want CPR under any circumstance or only some?
Right.
Am I okay with being on a ventilator long term? How do I feel about artificial nutrition if I can no longer eat? Getting clear on these and documenting them is essential.
And then appointing that agent, the who, we heard in the stories how important that is. Any advice on choosing that person?
Choosing your medical agent is a really significant decision. It shouldn't be taken lightly.
Definitely.
You need to pick someone you trust implicitly, someone who really understands your values, your beliefs.
And we'll stick to them.
And crucially, someone who will be willing and able to make decisions based on your values, even if maybe their own personal feelings might be different in that moment.
That's a key point. It's about representing you.
Absolutely. It could be a family member, a spouse, a close friend. The relationship matters less than the trust and understanding.
Okay, so you've reflected, chosen your agent. How do you make it official, legally valid?
The signing part is critical. Formalities matter here. Typically, you'll need to sign your medical will document in the presence of witnesses.
Witnesses, how many?
Usually 2 witnesses or sometimes in front of a notary public. It actually varies depending on the specific laws of your state.
Ah, state laws differ. Good to know.
Yes, definitely check your state's requirements. This formal signing process is what gives it legal weight.
Okay, signed, seal, delivered. Where does it go?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Delivering it is key. It's vital to make sure the document is accessible when it might actually be needed. So keep copies in a safe place, but make sure people know where it is.
Right, not locked away in a vault somewhere nobody can access.
Precisely. Give copies to your main doctor, maybe to any hospital where you get regular care.
And definitely the agent.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your appointed medical agent needs a copy. And probably other close family members too, so everyone's aware.
That makes perfect sense. No point having it if it can't be found in an emergency. Are there like standard forms or resources to help people get started?
Yes, thankfully there are. You can often find official medical will forms right on your state government's website,
Oh,
or
okay.
through specialized legal aid organizations. Many hospitals and healthcare systems also provide information, sometimes even the forms themselves, to help you get going.
That's helpful. And for our Muslim listeners, going back to that specific focus, how can they best ensure their medical will truly aligns with their Islamic principles?
That's a great question. While the legal document works within the U.S. legal system, you can absolutely ensure it reflects your Islamic beliefs
How so?
by clearly articulating your wishes in a way that aligns with those principles, using language that reflects your understanding of Islamic guidance on these matters.
So be explicit about the connection.
Yes. And it's also highly advisable, really, to seek guidance from knowledgeable religious advisors or scholars.
Right. Consult someone who knows the Islamic perspective.
Exactly. They can offer counsel on specific Islamic views related to end-of-life care, different medical treatments, and so on. And as we discussed, when choosing your medical agent.
Make sure they understand and will uphold those Islamic values.
Precisely. That's probably the most crucial part for ensuring decisions align with faith in the moment.
That's such important practical guidance. So, okay, to kind of wrap this all up, bring it together. What's the core message you really want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
I think the fundamental message, the main takeaway, is that taking proactive steps today to create a medical will. It's a really powerful way to protect your autonomy.
Your right to decide for yourself.
Yes. And to ensure that your deeply held principles, your values, are respected in the future, especially if a time comes when you can't speak for yourself.
Absolutely. It might feel, I don't know, a bit difficult or uncomfortable to think about now.
It often does.
But as we've heard, this act of thoughtful planning can make such a significant difference down the line. For your own peace of mind, and really for the well-being of your loved ones, too.
Exactly right. It removes a huge burden from them. And maybe, on that note, a final thought to leave you with. Really consider what truly matters most to you in your personal healthcare journey. What are your core values when it comes to life, health, and faith?
Mm.
And then ask, how can you take steps now to make sure those values aren't just vaguely understood, but are actually, legally documented and respected, even if you find yourself unable to communicate them?
That's a powerful question to reflect on.
It is. It's a meaningful area for personal reflection, and maybe for looking into those resources we mentioned,
Yeah.
taking that step.